planets are aligned. All the evidence is there. The corporate media hype in China, Europe, the U.S., everywhere is 1929 2.0 is here. Trump is Herbert Hoover. He's going to be blamed. They are on every channel that it's 1929, that it's imminent. Now, they've been trying to crash the market since March, and it failed. But now with the government shutdown and a bunch of the other maneuvers they've done, and with the absolute hype about the AI bubble being too big, which it is a bubble, but only a bubbles are of innovation and things are going to grow us out of this. I'm not even saying AI is the thing. The point is, powerful globalist forces, the BlackRock forces, on the surface have capitulated to Trump and his America First agenda, but right beneath the surface, they've redoubled them. And they've already moved at least $5 trillion into the stock market of the EU in the last 10 months, and tens of trillions of other equity, private equity, into other sectors. They're not sure if the U.S. or China will win this, so they've decided to wait it out on the sidelines and just crash the whole thing, buy it for pennies on the dollar, just like 1929, which was totally engineered. That's been declassified. It's all come out. And it was 10 years of hell after that, which is the Great Reset. It's what they want. And they're going to have release new viruses as the pretext of whatever it takes to shut down the economy, and then roll out the robots and all of that, because they'll be able to deliver medicine and food and everything during the next big pandemic that'll be 1,000 times worse in reality than what we saw with just the beta test that was COVID. And I've war gamed all this out, so look it up. And 5, 6, 7,000 years ago, 99% of society was feudal. But people don't know what feudalism is. You better find out about it, because the globalists in their own white papers, I had Jay Dyer 2 weeks ago with a top Pentagon, Stanford Research Institute, PhD, 1982, master class, 2-year textbook for anthropology, sociology, political science gurus. It taught at all the major elite universities, saying everything I just said, but it's good. And there's hundreds of these damn textbooks. I mean, that's how I know all this, because you can read stuff they wrote 50 years ago. We're here. 40 years ago. We're here. They're getting it done. So here's the big news. With the government shutdown and all the hype and attacks on the AI bubble, and having reporters and globalists on every channel every day for the last 2 months, and now it's come to a crescendo, building towards a finale, with Andrew Ross Sorkin on every channel, the book 1929, Inside the Greatest Crash in Wall Street History and How It Shattered a Nation. And then they're all talking about the total collapse here. Now, you have one of these now with 90% or more of the population being totally unself-sufficient, not knowing how to skin a buck, run a trot line, not knowing how to grow a garden, not having any backup. We were over 50% self-sufficient in the Great Depression. Over 50% of the households could live all alone forever on their 40 to 100 acres. 90% of the public lived in rural areas, and more than half of them could survive all by themselves, other than needing medicine and things like that. And it was just a normal thing you did. Now, those are the people we had during the Great Depression. Those people aren't around anymore, folks. We go into a full depression. Everything is going to shut down. Bill Gates has already bought up, and other globalists, most of the farmland. They're planning to only give you the bugs and the garbage and the poison during this. And then it's going to be a new plague, a new virus. That's why they're getting all the robots and self-driving around, so they'll bring you the food, and the robots will load it, and they'll all train you to be locked down. They admit all this plan, and they're gearing up for this right now. That's right. The Disney movie WALL-E is not a fictional movie, but a time machine into the future. That was made, what, 15 years ago? Well, here we are. WALL-E is now real. This is all coming to an end. And Trump was trying to innovate our way out of it, but they are trying to crash the stock market everywhere. I'll sit there at night, did it last night, turn on the television, turn on cable, only do it to monitor the enemy. And I sat there for like an hour and a half just flipping back and forth. It was just crash, 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 crash. They're not even hiding what they're trying to do. Well, hopefully, because Trump stopped them from crashing it so far.
Now, we are about to see in our economy, we're going to see the K-shaped economy, as they say, where the upper line of the K, that's going to be people who know how to use technology, and they will be abundant. They will live in that abundance era that Elon Musk is describing. If you know how to augment your intelligence, your business ideas, your entrepreneurship, your skill set, your interests using AI, you're going to do very, very well. The lower leg of that K-shaped economy is going to be the people who got left behind, the people who have very few skills that are obsolete. Those people are going to lose their jobs by the tens of millions in America over the next few years. And I believe even during the Trump administration, he is going to be facing an unemployment crisis that we've never seen before, not in the history of our country. So
you're saying the age of stagnancy is over?
Well, yeah, absolutely. Like, you're either going to have to learn to up your skill set and up your game, and you're going to have to augment your intelligence by using AI along with your job, or you're going to be steamrolled by this because it's moving so quickly. And as I said, I believe that AGI, however people define it, has already been achieved and is going to be rolled out. And so, but look, when you use AI,
no, I was told by a high-level billionaire tech person 5 years ago. They said, "Listen, we already have 18-wheelers driving coast to coast. They do the orders, they pick up the goods, no humans involved. They just don't want to tell people." That's what you're talking about.
Well, yeah, and let me put it this way. So Elon Musk is going to build 100 million Tesla robots. They haven't yet worked out the vision recognition, the behavioral model training in the robots, but it doesn't matter. As long as they have the hardware, you can update the software instantly, 18 months from now. And with Moore's Law working on microchips, NVIDIA, Blackwell designs that are cramming more CUDA cores into the chips, and the incredible advancements of language models that are doubling in capabilities every 9 months, Elon knows that you have to chase where the hockey puck is going to be by 2030. By the time 100 million robots roll off the assembly lines, they will have mastered all of the software necessary to turn those robots into replacements for up to 80% of human labor. That's what Elon knows.
And hasn't AI reached escape velocity now?
Absolutely. There's no question. I mean, we've already seen Amazon laying off they announced 30,000 people. We've seen UPS laying off 45,000 people this year, and it's happening at Target and General Motors and Salesforce.
So what's going to happen to them?
And so forth. Well, again, they're either going to learn to use AI and become competitive in ways that AI cannot yet touch, which involves being more human and having divinity and inspiration, creativity, and the innovation that makes us human. Or you're going to be left behind. You're going to end up on a UBI that Trump will be forced to roll out. There will be a UBI that'll be tied to a CBDC.
Explain that. It's universal basic income.
Universal basic income to prevent everybody from revolting as millions lose their jobs. The government will print money and hand out money to the masses, enough for them to feed themselves and maybe pay rent.
But you'll only get the stuff Gates wants, bug protein.
Well, exactly. There's going to be limitations on what you're allowed to buy. No ammunition, for example, right? And if you post the wrong things on social media, possibly under a future administration or maybe even under the current one, then, hey, you might not get as much money next month. This is the CBDC control grid system. First, people get thrust into poverty and desperation. Then they sign up so they can eat. And in signing up, they give up their biometrics, and then they're controlled by the system. And the people who are going to be immune to this are people who, number one, own gold and silver. As you well know, Alex, you've been mentioning gold and silver for 25 years. And the people who accumulated those metals over those years, they're very happy today. And they're going to be able to have financial independence through all of this that happens. It's uncanny, Alex, how often you and I arrive at the same conclusions independently. You and I have not spoken for, what, 6 months or longer? We have had no conversations about any of this. And yet, through our own research and investigations, we arrive at very similar conclusions. And, as far as what's happening geopolitically, civil war, in the Conservative Party, we have to keep it all in perspective. The big picture is the extermination of the human race. That is the overriding issue. And yes, sometimes, look.
Yeah, that's the
I'm
prime
unhappy.
directive of the globalists, whoever runs it. And so why is that? Why is it depopulation?
Well, okay. So, but let me back up before I answer that. So COVID vaccines, those bioweapons were all part of this. And anytime, anywhere in the world where there's a war, including like in Ukraine, and why the UK wants to send its young men to die on the front lines against Russia, that's population control from the evil British Empire. They want to kill off their own young men on purpose. And they found that Russia is the most effective way to do that. And Russia doesn't want that job. They don't want to be the meat grinder for the planet.
Lindsey Graham said it's great. We kill Ukrainians, we kill Russians.
Exactly. But the European leaders, they know that they're facing domestic revolt if they don't eliminate their own people. And the best way for them, the UK leaders, who are just the most evil empire ever that has existed on this planet. I mean, that's who went after Trump with the fake dossier and all of that. And that's who ran the censorship campaigns against you and I and so many others, and the so-called disinformation dozen. All of that came out of MI6, by the way. And it was laundered through the NGOs over to big tech. That's all a British operation.
And so was Crossfire Hurricane and all of it.
Yes, you got it. And this is one reason, by the way, why Trump is at war with the British Empire as it exists. It's a covert war. But that's why all the silver and gold came out of London earlier this year. I mean, man, this gets deep. You got to go into full Tom Luongo territory on this to really understand that war. But Trump is playing 5D chess on that front, although I'm critical of him on other fronts domestically, et cetera. But it doesn't matter. The big picture, mass extermination of the human population. And it's the Western nations that are pushing the leading edge of that extermination right now, whereas China, Russia, Iran, and other countries are not participating in that mass extermination agenda.
And that was the cardinal sin 5 years ago, the final deal when Xi Jinping, when he screwed us on rare earth minerals, when he double-crossed the globalists, that was fine. But when he said have 3 kids, reversing 1 child, that's when the globalists went apeshit.
Yeah. And realize, I mean, since post-World War II, America had the currency, had the industrial output, had the technology, and had the engineers and the scientists that could invent anything. All of that has shifted now to China. China has the industry. China has 500% more STEM graduates compared to the United States. China has more than double the aggregate annual energy output, over 10,000 terawatt hours of energy compared to the United States. Who's going to win the AI wars in the long run? It's going to be China, because they have the power, they have the manufacturing, the microchips, and they're leading us in robotics and drone technology, rare earth extraction technology, as well as advanced materials. So what the globalists want, and don't misinterpret me, anybody watching it, I'm not in favor of this plan. What the globalists want is a world where all Western populations and white people are completely exterminated.
Well, wait a minute. I mean, guys, pull up Larry Fink a year and a half ago. He said the best economies are the ones that aren't having kids that are dying.
Right.
Remember that? He said it's good for robots.
Yeah, I do remember that. Yeah.
Guys, pull up Larry Fink says the best economies are populations are declining. Sorry, go ahead.
They want China to dominate the world in technology, industry, and China is dominating now in open source AI. Some of the best models in the world.
And that's the official deal. And the West controls the military, but China double-crossed that.
Well, right, but the military is going to be obsolete with the rise of superintelligence. An aircraft carrier won't matter when China has a superintelligence system that can hack your power grid and
it's literally
take down any city they want.
Battlestar Galactica, when it just takes over your ships and turns them off.
And I believe, this is a prediction on your show, I believe that Western countries will fake power grid cyber attacks by China in order to turn off the power to their own cities to cause mass extermination of their own people. And these will be extended power grid outages on purpose, which will achieve die-off rates anywhere from 50 to 90%.
Well, Klaus Schwab bragged about that. He was like salivating over it.
Yeah, and Alex, I know a ton of people in the AI space, and they're smart people, but they have a blind spot. They don't realize the evil of the globalists. They don't realize that there is a depopulation agenda. What I hear from the AI crowd, sort of the people who are allowed to speak about AI and technology is, oh, everything's going to be great. They're going to solve all the problems. You're going to live in infinite abundance. The government's going to give you money, and the government's going to take care of you like you're living in a zoo.
No, it's designed to shut down human systems.
It's absolutely. Humans will be exterminated. Look, the competition right now, data centers, what do they need? Alex, they need power, and they need water, and they need land. Those three inputs compete with humans. Humans
and that's
need
the key.
power.
I've said the main opposition to mass globalist AI expansion, not micro decentralized, is why are we told we can't have a house or car or air conditioner, it's half the earth, but AI, as Eric Schmidt said, needs 100 times the power currently. Why does it get everything, but we don't? We're literally now fighting with each other what color we are. We should be fighting over human resources and have human coalitions that demand technology deployment that's pro-human.
In 2008, the Federal Reserve had powerful tools to address the crisis. Interest rates were 5.25% when the crisis began, giving the Fed room to cut all the way to zero. This stimulated borrowing and spending, helping to stabilize the economy. The Fed could also implement quantitative easing, buying trillions in Treasury bonds and mortgage-backed securities to inject money into the financial system. The Fed's balance sheet went from $800 billion before the crisis to $4 trillion by 2014. This unprecedented money printing helped avoid a complete collapse, but created the bubbles we're dealing with now. In 2025, interest rates are already relatively low, giving the Fed minimal room to cut. If they cut rates dramatically, they risk reigniting inflation that just required painful rate hikes to bring under control. If they don't cut, they let the economy crash into depression. Quantitative easing is similarly constrained in 2025. The Fed's balance sheet is already over $7 trillion after multiple rounds of QE following 2008 and then again during COVID. They can print more money, but everyone now understands that printing money causes inflation. The 2021 to 2023 inflation surge, the worst in 40 years, proved that you can't print unlimited amounts without destroying the currency's purchasing power. The Fed is trapped. Print money and destroy the dollar through inflation. Don't print and let deflation create another Great Depression. There's no good option because the tools that worked in 2008 don't work anymore after being overused. The government bailout capacity is also exhausted. In 2008, the government could borrow to bail out banks because federal debt was about 67% of GDP, manageable by historical standards. The Troubled Asset Relief Program, TARP, authorized $700 billion to buy toxic assets from banks. Additional programs brought the total bailout close to $2 trillion. This was politically unpopular but economically feasible because the government had borrowing capacity. In 2025, federal debt is 125% of GDP with trillion-dollar deficits, as far as the eye can see. The government doesn't have another $2 trillion to bail out failing banks and corporations. If they try to borrow it, bond markets will revolt and interest rates will spike even higher, making the debt service even more unsustainable. The bailout option that saved the system in 2008 doesn't exist in 2025. The international dimension makes 2025 worse than 2008 as well. In 2008, China was booming and helped pull the global economy out of recession by stimulating domestic demand and buying commodities. Europe, while affected by the crisis, wasn't in the same debt trap as the United States. Global cooperation through the G20 coordinated stimulus efforts. In 2025, China is experiencing its own economic crisis with a collapsing real estate sector, local government debt exceeding $13 trillion, and a demographic crisis as the population shrinks. Europe is dealing with energy crises, demographic decline, and political fragmentation. There's no major economy in position to lead global recovery. Geopolitical tensions mean cooperation is unlikely. When the crisis hits, every country will be fighting for survival rather than coordinating solutions. The most reliable predictor of recessions over the last 70 years has been the inverted yield curve, when short-term interest rates exceed long-term rates. This has predicted every recession since 1950 with no false positives. The yield curve inverted in July 2022 and remained inverted for 27 months, finally normalizing in September 2024. Historical analysis shows that recessions typically begin 3 to 12 months after the yield curve returns to normal, not while it's inverted. This means the danger window is October 2024 through September 2025. We're in that window right now. The signal that has never been wrong is telling us the recession is imminent. Consumer debt has reached levels that make the 2008 crisis look manageable by comparison. Credit card debt exceeds $1.14 trillion, an all-time record in nominal terms. The average credit card balance is $6,800 per household, with interest rates averaging 21 to 28%. Credit card delinquencies, the percentage of borrowers 90 days or more behind on payments, have risen to levels not seen since 2011. This matters because consumer spending represents 68% of the U.S. economy. When consumers can't borrow anymore and have to start paying down debt instead of spending, the economy contracts. We're at the point where consumers are maxed out. They can't keep the spending going that the economy requires. The commercial real estate crisis is unfolding in slow motion, but will accelerate dramatically through 2025 and 2026. The 2025 crash will reshape American politics in ways we can't predict, but that will likely be destabilizing. So why is 2025 worse than 1929 and 2008 combined? Because we have the asset bubbles of 1929 in stocks, the debt bubbles of 2008 in housing and credit, and the government debt bubble that didn't exist in either previous crisis. All three are happening simultaneously. In 1929, only stocks crashed and only 10% of Americans were affected directly. In 2008, housing crashed, but the government could borrow to bail out banks and the Fed could print money without causing inflation. In 2025, everything is crashing together and the tools to fix it don't work anymore. The Fed can't cut rates to zero because inflation is still elevated. They can't print unlimited money because they just did that and caused the worst inflation in 40 years. The government can't bail everyone out because it's already drowning in $36 trillion of debt. The 12 warning signs I've shown you, from the inverted yield curve to Warren Buffett hoarding cash, aren't speculation. They're facts. They're happening right now. The inverted yield curve that has predicted every recession since 1950 is telling us the recession is imminent within the next 3 to 9 months. Regional banks are failing. Commercial real estate is collapsing. Consumer debt is at record highs with delinquencies rising. Unemployment is rising. Insider selling is at levels that precede crashes. Every indicator is flashing red simultaneously. The timeline is clear. Based on the yield curve normalizing in September 2024, recession typically comes 3 to 12 months later. That puts us in the window of December 2025 through September 2026. Commercial mortgage refinancing peaks in 2025 and 2026. Credit card defaults are accelerating now. The trigger could come at any moment, and once it starts, the cascade will be unstoppable. This isn't prediction. This is pattern recognition. The same patterns that preceded 1929 and 2008 are present now, only more extreme. When the crash comes, stocks will drop 65 to 80% from peak, worse than 1929's 89% drop, because it will be faster and more concentrated. Bonds will drop 35 to 50%, something that didn't happen in previous crashes. Real estate will drop 40 to 60%, worse than 2008's decline. Unemployment will exceed 15%. And recovery will take not 5 years like 2008, but 10 to 20 years or more, because the Fed has no tools left and the government has no borrowing capacity left. The everything bubble earned its name because everything crashes together and there's nowhere to hide.